Hi, this is Simon Upstall and welcome to part 2 of this tutorial for Apple Motion, in which we're going to be looking at making stuff float on water. So the end result is going to look more or less like this, but every time I do this project it looks quite considerably different, so it's not going to be exactly like this. But anyway, let's get going. So the way we left it last time, things were looking a bit like this. Now you saw me add the lens flare and it all seemed to work perfectly fine, but you might see that yours looks like this, and there's no particular reason for that other than you've got to turn on the layer order. As you saw, I didn't need to turn on the layer order last time, so I don't know why that was the case. But anyway, that's what you need to do to sort out that problem there of the lens flare not overlapping the foreground. Okay, so let's now add some text. I'm going to close down that group there. I'm going to make a new group to put my text in. I'm going to grab the text tool. I'm going through the laborious process of typing. Text always my most unfavourite bit of anything to do with motion. I'm going to come over to format. So I'm using Druk medium. I'm going to go with 450 for the size. I'm going to center align it, obviously. Line spacing, I'm going to go with -75. I'm going to come over to properties, center it all up. I'm going to go with appearance 3D text. I'm going to set the depth to 20. I'm going to come in here and just grab paint and cracked paint. I'm not really too bothered. It could be anything. This sort of just is fairly neutral, so I think it's quite good. So open up the environment, just set that environment intensity down to about 50. Let's now come over to properties and have an X rotation of -90, like that. I'm just going to disable that ramp on the camera like that, so it's sitting about there. Now we've got text sitting on the top of the water, but that's not what we want. I'm going to call this group under, because this is going to be the text that sits under the water. And to the text itself, I'm going to apply an image mask. I'm going to open up my C here, and I'm going to grab the Calm C, not the C group, Calm C, drop that in there, switch to luminance. And you can probably see now that we've got that faintly underneath the water. Despite the fact that the text is on top, because we've added this image mask using the luminance of that Calm C layer, which obviously I need to turn back on again, as you can see, we've got this interesting effect of it appearing to be below the water. So I'm going to do a little bit of processing to this image mask. The first thing I want to do is to come over to color and negative. Then I'm going to come to color and threshold. And finally, I'm going to add a color and levels. So let's grab the threshold and let's increase this threshold value quite a bit. Now, what you can probably see is that the back is darkening down. So we're seeing a lot less of the back. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because the luminance mask that we're using, this Calm C, actually gets brighter towards the back and darker towards the front. And that's why I used the negative to flop that around so that I could actually make the background fade away. Okay, so then I'm going to grab the levels, and what do I need to adjust? The black value like that. There you go. Actually might just use the gamma as well, just like that. Maybe not all go all in with the black. Something like this is quite good. What I might also do is just come to the text itself and add a level, so color and levels, and let's just darken it down like that, and I think that's going to be better as well. We might come back and revisit this later. Okay, so one thing I forgot to do with my text here was that I actually don't want a front bevel. I want this to be square, like that. And I think now we're fairly good. Okay, so we've got this under group, and that's going to be the text under the water. And we need another layer for the text that's above the water. So I'm going to duplicate this group. Let's call this over. Let's open it up. So in this case, let's come in here. We don't want that image mask, or rather we do want an image mask. I'm just going to turn it off, and I'm going to delete all of these filters like that. So now we're left with the text on top like that. And this time I want to reduce the depth to about 15. Now we can't see the layer that we've made underneath. And that's because we need to move this up. So let's come over to properties and we'll move it up like this until it's sitting there. So we're moving it up 15, which is the amount, in fact, of the depth of this new layer. So I'm just going to zoom in so you can see how this is looking. So we've got these two layers like that. And what we can do with this top layer is we can add back in a bevel if we want. So are we going to go with that? Pretty horrid, but let's go with maybe an amount of 2. I think that's probably quite good. So now we've got this, but there's a lot more we need to do. Now, one of the things that when people saw the early tests of this, what they wanted was all the letters to float independently. So I'm going to address that now. So I'm going to come into my original text here. In fact, I'm going to do it on here first of all. I'm going to do this using a sequence text behavior. So I'm going to drop on a sequence text like that here. I'm going to add format position. I'm going to open up the position. And now the position we want is Z. And I'm going to go with 15. So I'll animate character without spaces. I'll have a spread of 10. And I want to set the direction to be center to ends like this. And so now we'll get this sort of drift up and down of the letters like that. Maybe we can increase that Z position. Let's go to 20. And hopefully you can see how they're all slightly drifting around separately because of that sequence text behavior. Now we obviously need to copy that onto the base layer there. Command C, Command V on the base layer so they're moving in sync with each other like that. But the other bit of animation I want is to have the letters sort of swim around in the X and Z dimensions. So I'm going to come to this under, first of all, and I'm going to come to position and I'm going to add an oscillate to the X. I'm going to set the amount to 5 and I'm going to do the same for the Z. Add parameter behavior oscillate. Again, I set the amount to 5 and I'm going to set the phase to 1. And then I obviously need my top to follow along with that. So I'm going to select my top. I'm going to come to behaviors, motion tracking, match move. And then we can select the base text like that. And they should move in sync with each other. There you go. So we're getting a little bit of sort of lateral drift of the letters. Obviously not quite the same as with the sequence text. We could probably do a sequence text with that as well, but I kind of like this personally, so I'm going to go with that. There's another thing I want to do, and that's to create the sense of some ripples along the base of the text that's above the water. So I'm going to do that in a slightly odd way. So let's close down this undergroup so you can see. So this text in the overgroup, I'm going to duplicate. So right-click duplicate. I'm going to delete that image mask off it. And let's add to this new layer some effects. Actually, I'm going to turn it off because it's so ugly when you actually see what's going on here. I want to preserve the mystery. So let's go to stylize and crystallize. Let's come to blur and Gaussian blur. And let's come to color and levels. So crystallize, we're going to have a size of 15, 0 speed. Gaussian blur, we're going to have an amount of 32. And then we're going to take our levels here and we're going to come into the alpha and then we're going to bring these two nice and close together like that. So that actually looks like this. Absolutely appalling. You probably have no idea what I'm going to do with that. So what we are going to do is we're going to actually use that as the source for the image mask on the other text. And we're going to turn that on and you can see we get this. Now that's looking a bit rubbish just at the moment. So what we need to do is adjust this mask offset, so that Y offset there, to about 6. And what I forgot to do, and this is going to make all the difference, is to come back to the crystallize and set its mix value down to 50. And now you'll see we're getting this rippling here against the text. It's not great at the back there. This is, after all, a cheat. And I think probably the best way of doing this would be to have a separate instance of this whole process for each line, but I'm just going to go with this. I think it's going to be good enough for the tutorial. So let's zoom out. So it's kind of looking like that. So we're seeing this detail here of that rippling, and I think that really does help quite a bit. Okay, so one of the things we need to do is to sort out the lighting. First of all, actually, I'm going to adjust the position of this text. I think it's too far back. So I'm going to select all of those text layers in both of those groups and then come over to Format, and I'm just going to adjust my baseline like that. You can see that as I move the text, we're getting more ripples. And this is just a function of the crystallize filter. If you move something against it, it will create this kind of rippling effect. So that's really rather good. Okay, move it down to there, baseline negative 250, say. Okay, so lighting, let's talk about that. Let's close up these groups here. Let's add object light. I think I'm going to stick with the point light for this. I'm going to grab this color just so we've got a complementary color to our sun there. I'm going to come to the position, set the Z position to negative 900, like that. So it's coming in from the back. And let's set the Y position to 200, like that. Now, the problem we have is that the text itself is illuminated. So let's come to here. We actually need to select this one, the active one, come to text here, appearance, and what do we need to do? Okay, so we need to turn off the lighting here, turn off the lighting like that. And then having done that, we can adjust the intensity of this light like that. That's looking a bit better, isn't it? There you go. Now that's looking much more as though the light is coming in from the back like that. So let's just turn on that ramp of our camera again. Oh, it's much too fast. Let's just do something much more gentle with that. Let's have a start value of maybe negative 150, end value of 150. So now we're getting this. So what I want is to get the text not to just sit flat on the water, but to sort of bob up and down into the water. So I'm going to select this floating here, this one that is turned on. I'm going to come to its Y position and I'm going to add an oscillate behavior. And I'm going to set the amount to 5. And I'm going to do the same for this version here. So come to the Y, add parameter behavior, oscillate. Again, set that amount to 5. And I think hopefully now you can see that it's sort of digging into the water a little bit. Not very much, but just enough, I think. Let's maybe increase that amount. I'm going to go with 10 and 10, just to exaggerate it. Just turn those off. You can see the difference, hopefully. Just a little bit more life to it. A little bit more believable, I think. Not happy about these ripples here. I think probably what I'll do is just come in to this crystallize. Let's just reduce that mix value even more down to about 20. And that just calmed it down, doesn't it? There you go. You've got a little bit of it. I mean, we might decide we don't actually want that. Let's just turn off that. Now, I do think it adds something. Can you see the difference that makes? So that's without that masking. Just a little bit. Maybe that's the answer. Just have a very, very small amount, like so. Just helping, I think. Look at that. That doesn't work quite so well as that. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. I could certainly spend another hour or two ironing out all the details, but really that's for you to do. And I'm sure you'll have your own ideas as to how you want to execute this anyway. So I hope that's been interesting. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.